Every 4 months, TFT releases a new set, completely changing all of the units, traits, abilities, etc. A new set is essentially like learning a brand new game, and as a semi-regular occurrence, the ability to learn a set quickly is pretty important. With set 13 fresh on the live servers, I wanted to give a quick rundown of how I personally tackle set launches. New sets are often announced with a dev drop, which details the theme and design of a set. They'll also discuss system changes and introduce the new set mechanic. I actually didn't watch the dev drop this set, but I usually do, and you should too. It's usually just a 10 to 15 minute video that helps you frame the set and lets you know what to expect before playing. Next thing I like to do is just jump into the game to see what's going on. I did this on PvE, but you can also do this in normal games. If you're really brave, you can just do this in ranked, but I would not recommend it. My goal with these games is not necessarily to play good TFT, but instead to just see what everything does and get a feel for the traits and units. I'll use a single unit as a starting point, and it doesn't really matter which one specifically, so I usually just pick someone I see in stage 1. I'll use an example to walk through my thought process. This set, I used Powder as my jumping pad because she's the one cost I got for free at the start of my first PvE game. Powder is an AP unit that has the Family, Scrap, and Ambusher traits. From there, I can check the units for each of those respective traits. Family only has 2 other units, Violet with the Pitfighter trait and Vander with the Watcher trait. So maybe I can form a Watcher frontline for Powder while activating the Family trait. If I continue this process, I can see that Echo is a 4 cost that shares both the Scrap and Ambusher traits with Powder. Echo also has the Firelight trait which contains Scar, a Watcher. Powder, Violet, Vander, Scar, and Echo would form a package that grants 3 Family, 2 Watcher, 2 Scrap, and 2 Ambusher with 5 units. From there, I'll choose 1 or 2 traits to add on to based on the shops I see and read the abilities of the units as I add them to my board. In this case, I focus on Ambushers and Watchers. If I read literally everything, I'll get overwhelmed with information and things start to get jumbled and I start mixing up abilities, so I just try to take everything one step at a time. As I continue to play more games, I actively pick new traits and new units that I haven't played yet to repeat this process for as many units as possible. At the start of this game, I literally didn't even know what a single unit or trait did, and I already have a game plan for what units I want and what traits I'm hoping to activate while learning what several units do. When I take this approach to building my board, I'm essentially just picking out clusters of units to learn about. Again, my goal isn't to play perfect TFT or even particularly good TFT and win every lobby. I'm just trying to figure out what's even going on in the first place, so the boards I create using this strategy might not be particularly strong. This approach also helps me get a sense of how certain traits might link to others, such as Echo and Scar connecting Scrap with Watchers using the Firelight trait in the previous example. Now, a faster method would be to just go to a website like tactics.tools, MetaTFT, or LolChess that lists the in-game descriptions of all the units, traits, etc. But that's boring, and I personally find that it doesn't stick very well unless I see things in action. Playing the game also helps me connect the traits together much more effectively than just reading the traits of every single unit individually. However, if a wall of text doesn't bother you, then there's nothing wrong with this approach, it just doesn't work for me. Regardless of what method you choose, make sure to read abilities and traits carefully. For example, I saw in my first game that Powder's ability was a huge AoE explosion, so I immediately gave her a Morellonomicon thinking she would be a great way to apply wound and burn to large clumps of enemies. About 5 seconds later, I finished reading the rest of her ability and learned that she already naturally applies both effects, meaning the item was completely wasted on her. Now, I've mostly talked about units and traits up to this point, and this is partially because they're the aspects that change the most drastically and form the backbone of the set. However, they're also the aspects that you have the most agency and actively chasing after. Each new set also introduces new augments, but because your offerings are often up to chance, it's hard to gun for a specific augment without dumping tons of games. I just try to pick the options that seem powerful with the units and traits I've already selected, and opt for new options that don't hugely alter my game plan. If there's an augment you really want to try, you kinda just have to wait until the game offers it to you. I also like using the PvE period to watch challenger streamers and see what kind of boards they're making, and how they perform. You can get insight on their decision making in an unexplored set, such as what items they build and what traits they link together. If my last approach is like studying, watching high-level streamers is like an answer key. If you can, try to figure out their reasoning for things you would have done differently. This can help you identify patterns in what a challenger player naturally favors when there's still limited data and information on the meta. My final tip for learning new sets is to not be too concerned with the meta, especially during PvE. Understanding the meta is important for climbing and earning LP, but you need to know what units actually even do in the first place. During the PBE, there's pretty much no merit to abusing the meta anyways. Balance adjustments happen every 1 or 2 days, you play fewer different units, meaning you learn about fewer units, and the meta in PBE has little to no bearing on the power levels seen on launch. If you're learning the set in normal games on live servers, I would still recommend not being overly concerned with the meta and just focus on learning about as many units and traits as you can. I put a lot of emphasis on understanding what things actually do over understanding balance in this learning period. Even after launch, balance has the potential to change wildly from patch to patch, but it's rare for a trait or unit to be reworked. Prioritizing studying the fleeting meta state over the more basic information doesn't really make sense for long-term improvement, and having a thorough understanding of, for example, how traits connect, tends to make learning the meta on a given patch easier anyways. So yeah, this is how I personally go about learning new sets. For some people, it can be a big headache having to relearn everything, and even some of my friends are turned off by the idea. But I think with the right mindset and methodology, it's really not that bad and can even be pretty fun. I used to hate the feeling of everything I learned going out the window, but now I look forward to new sets and I'm always excited to see what the TFT devs have in store for us. If this video helped you, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know which set was the hardest for you to learn in the comments below, or if you have any other tips I didn't mention. And of course, thanks for watching.